Hi, hello, and welcome back to East India Marketing Company. And I'm so glad that the second guest in the series here. In fact, I won't give an intro to him. That I'll leave to the tagging, etc. That we'll do. But Hari is a very interesting close friend who I have connected at different layers and different levels over the past few years. Probably the biggest reason for connecting with him is exactly what you see in his background here, where he's standing. Something that's like a decade long, I mean, few decades long love for each one of us here on screen. Tintin, the world of Tintin. So much so that I've named my 10-year-old son after him. And obviously, when I discovered a fellow Tintin lover, and then I figured that he's also a marketer. He's also someone who is into content and culture, who is into quizzing as well. So then, I mean, there were far too many reasons to fall in love with him. And here he is. Hari, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alekhya. It's a pleasure to meet you again, and always a fabulous kind of experience to connect at so many levels and at so many different passions.
Yeah. So, Hari, diving right into it. So, what are you up to now professionally, if I may ask you that question?
Professionally, I work with the Publicis Group, which is a very large, as you know, French MNC that owns several companies across the technology and the communication space. And this is my second stint with them. And this is a role that encompasses three things: culture, content, and technology. So we, as you know, Publicis handles a lot of large brands across the world. And the endeavor is to be where the consumers are today. So therefore, there is a existing horizon of business, which is, all things that you must do for brands. And then there is this new horizon where you look at emerging culture, you look at emerging platforms, and you look at how those platforms are evolving, and how consumers are behaving on that platform, and therefore how brands can behave, to kind of find the right fit. So in a sense, it's a very interesting and futuristic role, where at this point of time, for instance, I'll give you a small example. If you look at gaming as a large culture, which is emerging, in which millions of people, men and women, are kind of spending obsessive amounts of time. We are right now almost treating that as a lab and understanding how people are engaging and how people are kind of immersing themselves in that passion, so that our brands can have a meaningful play there. So a lot of my job involves study of culture and the platforms that are emerging, and look at how people are, what kind of insights are emerging out of that, and how brands can play a great role in that. So yeah, it's something right up my aspiration and street, because I've been kind of I call myself a student of culture and subcultures for several years, ever since I started understanding the world around me, and that's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, you like help the viewers understand who you are as a person, who you have been as a person, what has been your hobbies, interests, etc., which has sort of helped you do what you're doing today every day, right? So just help us understand who you have been as a person.
Okay, so as a person, I have largely been, and as I've kind of started putting a simplistic understanding of what are the various things I do really, and I've been doing since I started understanding the world around me. One is, of course, looking at life and looking at the things around me with a very different lens. And therefore, many people define that as an art, as an artist's lens, which is that you look at the reality around you and give it a different interpretation, or give it a different spin. So I think I've been doing that ever since I was, I think, 11 or 12. And therefore, I was deeply interested in art. You see the stuff around me, 90% of it has been painted by myself. And therefore, at a time when comics were kind of emerging, and our older generation used to say that comics are about dumbing down your head, but you should read books with lots of words in it. I was already into comics. And today, comics is an art form. So, so things like that. So that got me interested in art, that got me interested in graphic design, that got me interested in sketching and painting. So when I did all of that, I kind of felt that I should do that for a living. Now, as I started going forward in that journey, and I was growing. I was at a decision point in my life where I had to choose what I had to do in terms of a profession. Something that subconsciously remained in my head was that, hey, do a job that will allow you to still pick up a brush and a pencil. And
That was the only trigger. That was the only filter.
That was the only trigger. I just do something every day where you can be in touch with what you love, which is sketching art. Because even
and if I may ask, when was this, Hari? Like, when was this?
So this was closer to the time when I was in class 12, and we were all going into college. I had no clue at that point of time that there was something that you could apply into art college and all of that. Plus, the milieu that I came from, getting into art college was a very big risk. And therefore, I went into a regular college. I did my economics honors from Delhi University. But that was just to have a good time in college. All I knew was that, I have 3 years and I should have a lot of fun. And I'd heard that Delhi University has a lot of cultural engagements. And I just went into college for that. And even while I was doing my economics honors, what I used to love doing is in the class sitting and doing sketches of professors and sketches of friends and a whole lot of naughty stuff, which was only a few friends were privy to. So while I was doing that, and I realized that 3 years had passed by, this was at the age of about 18 or 19, I realized that the closest I will get to keeping my passion alive was advertising. Because in those days, advertising was very print heavy and static heavy. So we used to see a lot of photography happening in advertising. So all these were adjacent. So when I got into that, when I was just 20 years old, and I visualized myself sitting and writing ads and making ads with my hands. And that's what my external viewpoint was. But once I got in, I saw a whole different world. And I saw that there was so many technicalities. There were, people used to be, if you were to get into the creative discipline, then you necessarily had to have a specialization or a qualification in art. So that was out for me. If you had to write, then you had to probably come from a background of literature, which of course that entire paradigm changed when Prasun Joshi and Piyush Pandit changed and that was the inflection point that I joined the industry in. And of course, more importantly, more than these skills, I think why I felt very close to what I was doing was ideas. Because at any point of time, I felt very alive when I was thinking about breaking a convention and thinking of an idea. And advertising was and continues to be today an industry of ideas. And I found myself in the sweet spot of talking about those ideas to clients and the teams inside the office. So I joined this famous bullshit career called account management, which of course I am just joking about it. I think it's a great career. There's a notion that if you're in account management, you can't be creative. In fact, one of my very good friends and mentor, Benny Thomas, used to say that it's a fallacy. In fact, only if you're creative can you be a good account management person. And I kind of still live by that. So I worked, and of course I did very well. And I've worked for many, many years, many campaigns, many brands. And somewhere when I finished about 25 years in the industry, I had reached positions where, it was fairly easy to get things done. But there was still a calling in me of saying, what is it that you're really doing? You're doing things for brands, but are you putting out things which are yours, where you have the final say? So if you want to put out a piece of art, you don't have to ask 10 people what it is all about. It's about you and your art. So that's when I started Culture Drum, which still continues today. Now it exists in a different form because I'm back in a formal job. So Culture Drum was all about saying what's happening in culture and how can I make a comment about that? How can I be part of conversations? How can I be part of various organized events and organized immersions that are happening? And I started that, and I also found that in that a lot of brands got interested and wanted to kind of work on these bespoke small projects. Of course, there wasn't a lot of money in it, but there was a lot of fulfillment because being an entrepreneur for 6-7 years gave me the flexibility and free time to pursue my passion all over again. So, in fact, I must tell you that all the art that you find around my house has actually happened after age 43, age 44, which is, I call the golden period of my life where I've just created a lot of stuff. So what I do, so essentially that's that. So this whole connection with culture, creativity, imagination is something that I define my core as.
Awesome.
It has been applied in business. It has been applied in the work that I do, and of course, it continues to be applied in the things that I do, even for work that is for individuals and not for clients. So
Awesome.
there is a lot. So there is a lot that I bring of that world into my work today, because at Publicis Group we are looking at, for instance, sneaker culture is something that I'm fascinated by, and we are trying to bring that in. Gaming, I spoke to you about. I'm working on this with two clients I can't name right now, on this whole conversation about AI versus AI, which is artist inspiration versus artificial intelligence. And I must tell you that people want to be part of these conversations. So this is what I'm passionate about. This is what my world is. And if you want to see, so what I did was, when I joined back Publicis Group, I wanted to keep Culturedrum alive, but not, of course, not as a profit-making venture or a professional venture, because I can do only one organized job. So I've converted that into a not-for-profit creative collaboration platform, which you know about. And people are free to kind of come and browse that and write into me. And if we have something interesting to do, if you want to start a lit fest in your local area, let's do it. If you want to start, if you want to start a writing camp for children, let's do it. If you want to if you want to do a graphic novel with me, I have a few stories, let's do it. So the thing is, technology today and our lives, our flexible lives, allow us a lot of time and resources to do things that are possible. So that's what it is. And I hope I've given you a fairly uncomplicated answer to your simple question.
No. And it's beautiful, and it's giving me 4 or 5 talking points already. If you saw me jotting down a few subsequent questions. I think amazing. So what you mentioned, the coming together reminded me of that much abused framework today of Ikigai, that you need to be at the center, right? So it seems
of that beautiful petal,
beautiful petal, which has, at least at the bare minimum level, ensured the book has become a bestseller. and don't know how many people have actually got that. But I think they talk about the process of flow. I think that one line takeout from the book is about flow. So what I hear you mention, starting from that journey where you're in 11th or 12th to now, you have been in the process of finding your flow. And that beautiful anecdote that you mentioned, that all the creations have come after the age of 43. So there is no real age when you can be creative. A lot of people say, I am creative, and you are not. It's not like that, right? I think this is the difficult bit. People tend to forget that being creative, being an idea generator, needs to come from a process of discipline, right? And this is something I have personally felt as well. And I have seen the most creative people around me are the ones who are actually the most disciplined ones, right? And do you agree? And what is your own personal hack or process? How do you go about it? And what have you evolved into over the years as a person and a process?
It's a beautiful question, because it fundamentally questions the notion that creative people are indisciplined. That creative people, free flow means just going into some tunnel without an idea of what to do,
while feeling happy and high and doing something.
That's right. And keep oscillating from one point to another. While that happens, I think the oscillation happens, the straying happens. It's not a linear path. So a lot of people pick up all the desirable things from what they see of creative people around them. They say, yaar, ye आराम से बैठा हुआ है, उसने नहाया नहीं सुबह से, or he's smoking 20 cigarettes. So there is a certain glamorization and romanticization of creative people in pop culture, especially in the 50s and 60s. And I'm now going to talk to you, and this is where what I wanted to interject and talk about is this whole binary. So there are productive people, and then there are creative people.
That don't do. One person can't be the two. Both.
There is a profession and there is a hobby. Now, what is a hobby defined as? It's defined as any pursuit that you do for enjoyment. So that definition necessarily assumes that if you're anything that you do outside the hobby is not enjoyable.
Correct.
So I question that. So a lot of things that we've grown up with about the notion of creative people, of the notion of creativity, is all very biased. It's either this, or they always give you a choice A or choice B.
Absolutely.
Which is a very, according to me, I don't want to sound like anyone else, but it is very Western thinking. It's like, hey, you are either Russia or you're the US. You are either Coke or you are either Pepsi. You are either you are either blue or red. It's a binary narrative which has influenced every part of our life, including, hey, either you go to work or you will be at home. So the thing is, I question that, because fundamentally human beings, their lives and their passions are all intertwined. For instance, I believe that I'm somebody who enjoys his job. So when I pick up a brush or when I come back home, it is not that is my moment of enjoyment. My moment of enjoyment is at office, and my moment of enjoyment is work. So that is the flow. That if you know that your life is intertwined, and the moment I find that I'm not enjoying a particular thing in my work, of course I'm mature enough not to abandon it. I just give it to someone else. I say, hey, I'm not enjoying it right now. Can you take this forward, and I'll come back at a point when I feel that I can enjoy it. So this thing about finding joy in everything is a must, or the base for creativity.
The second, awesome. Please.
The second thing is that you need to say that, okay, and this is something that has happened over the years, Alekhya. I have been inspired by a lot of craftspeople, like people like photographers, like Hergé, like what is the most important thing? The most important thing is you ultimately are inspired because of what they put out as an outcome of their work. Okay. Correct. So whenever you say that I want to be creative, you have to be very clear about wo kya hai, end mein jo kya aayega. Is it a book? Is it a canvas? Is it a wall painting? Is it a song? Is it a cartoon? What is that one objective? That object, whether real or whether abstract, there has to be some object that is the culmination and the distillation and the outcome of everything that you put into it. Now, I must tell you that if you don't have that outcome in head, if you can't visualize that outcome in the head, then the process is useless, because what are you even going to? You have to go to something, right? So what then from point A to that point, then that road is not linear. That is creativity. Now, if that road is linear, that is not creative. Then you will say, okay.
Then you already know how to get there.
Yeah. Then and then it's not going to make people provide alternative perspectives to things. Okay. Awesome. So it's like today, if I want to engage a close friend of mine, close friends community of mine in a conversation on, say, maids in Gurugram. Okay. Now, I know that there are many aspects to it, because when I watch them, when I observe them, and this was, I'm very proud of it. It's a art series called Panchali Pedals in Gurugram, which is a result of 10 years of work. Because I've been starting observing them almost 11, 12 years ago, and I saw a certain aspect of their lives, which triggered many thoughts in me. But those thoughts were going here, the thoughts were going there. Then I started sketching them. Then I got inspired by many people on Instagram. There were Vietnamese cyclists who were sketching Vietnamese women with those straw hats and cycles. There were so many examples. I said, why can't I do this? Let me do that, because there is something beautiful about it. So there was beauty in the moment, but however, that was in my head. Now, how do I express it to a person who's not gone through the same 12-year reflection? The thing is, if I want that person to experience the same magic that is in my head about that maid riding a bicycle, I have to give it in some form. That is the form I then visualize, saying, hey, I will do a set of 10 paintings or 6 paintings or 5 paintings, and I will express my story in that form. So then became the whole objective visualization. And then I went through the process of saying, okay, can I look at 5 moments of hers? Can I look at, because I captured them on photographs. I used to observe them every morning and afternoon. I used to observe their saris. I used to observe the gentle way in which they were kind of...
The stories, right? I remember discussing with you the backstories that you had about them.
So it then evolved into something very digressive. Like it digressed from one point to another. There was one line of thought which was about just a day in their lives. Then there was one thought in there, one thought in my head which was all about oppression, because that's the regular narrative, na? Rich and poor, haves and have-nots. But I moved beyond that. I said they have a lot. They have the haves. We are the have-nots. So if I were to visualize them as having those rich moments where they have taken their freedom in their hands and saying, I'm going to cycle to work, where I'm not going to depend on anyone else, not
That's
on a
an
man.
extremely empowering thought.
Empowering thought. So I had disempowering thoughts, empowering thoughts, divergent thoughts. Then that's how it evolved. So it took almost between the time that I decided to do this and I finally put it out as a form of an exhibition so that people could then go through my process in 5 minutes. See, what I've gone through in 12 years, people have to go through in 5 minutes. That is creativity. What great filmmakers do, what great artists do, they go through. You think Oppenheimer is something that this guy would have thought about 1 year ago? No, it's
no.
Look at Avatar. When James Cameron took 20 years to make the first Avatar.
Correct.
It was cooking in his head, but it took us 2 hours to watch it and get the same feeling. So to me, that's the process of creativity, and therefore you're absolutely right, Alekhya, it requires a great deal of discipline. And I've learned that by doing a few things pretty late in life. Also what happens is that when I keep saying late in life, it's also life has also been kind, because then you're undistracted in that endeavor. When you are younger, you have many other things to do. So those are choices we need to make, really. I hope that answers part of your question.
No, it's beautiful, and probably if there is one recording section which I'm going to edit the least, it will be the last 15 minutes. I can assure you, and I'll tell you the 2-3 reasons why. I mean, the one reason we started this podcast, we had a very different objective 6 months back. Like, we felt that we want to solve XYZ problems in the world of marketing, talk about stuff which matter, and then. And then as we have sort of moved forward, we realized the one purpose, which has to be the purpose of this podcast, is to pay it forward by just sharing some of the realizations and experiences. Because the more people I speak to, they are absolutely youngsters, students who are in second or third year in B school or in their UG degrees. They say that, sir, we are now overwhelmed with, there is so much information, right? So I think the currency is curation of knowledge. And what you mentioned is, I think, the perfect distillation of a creative process, Hari, right? So one of my favorite words is cross-tabbing, and I think what you just described was a perfect example of that. Like that. You had a certain observation, you had a certain insight, you had that initial primordial thought, but you didn't quite have the form in mind. And then here was cross-tabbed an idea of the cyclists in Vietnam, right? So from some of the reference, and from there you sort of then develop different perspectives, which Gen Zs like to call a POV, right? So you had so many POVs of that same one single line, right? And I think that's the kick, that's the high, right? And hence you give different contexts and perspectives, and there was the frame of references, which we also showed you right now to the viewers through the visuals as you spoke through them. So it will be beautiful to sort of put that together and put that learning. Amazing. I was so happy with the answer to the process. And the bit about filmmakers. So I was, in fact, yesterday I watched Oppenheimer, and I was listening to this video of interview of Nolan. He was mentioning that he always had this idea 10-15 years back. And I think 3-4 years back, he read that book about Prometheus, and that's when he sort of got that thing together. Much like you, like, so Prometheus for him was that cyclist in Vietnam. He had that idea always at the back of his head, right? So and like you mentioned, filmmakers have been inspirations for me. I mentioned this in one of the previous episodes. My by far the biggest childhood idol was Satyajit Ray, right? Because of the polymath that he was.
Absolutely,
he did everything.
I love that word, polymath.
Yeah, he was jack of all trades. This is used very loosely, the phrase, but he was one, right? Like, he used Ravi Shankar for a couple of his first few films, but then he realized he has too many ideas himself and he's not liking how Ravi Shankar's music is fitting into his movies, and then he got to it himself, right? Super. So, and I jotted on the second point after the process from your first answer was AI versus AI, and that was very, very interesting for me as a question. So how is of course we need to talk about AI, right? So but tell us, if you can't share too many details about that, but your view and your POV on this.
I'll tell you. So I'll tell you my I'll share with you my personal exploration. I've got a lot of visuals, and I'll share that post with you. Yes. Now, this is a very hot topic. In fact, I was in Bombay day before yesterday, Friday evening. I was at an industry event of a technology company, which heavily relies on providing content on devices. and I met my old colleague and very famous industry person, Prasoon Joshi, and he was sitting in a panel, and they were all talking about AI and the threat to creative people, and or is it a threat? So I think the conversation has now matured from just the wonderment of what AI can create to the threat, and now to say, hey, it's a tool, we don't have to worry and all of that. So right. So this progression has happened in very high circles, but at the bottom, the questions still remain. People don't even. So one of the things that I did was I spoke with a few Gen Z friends of mine. By the way, I think that I'm the only 51-year-old Gen Z in this world. So
same with 39-year-old Gen Z here. So yeah, at times I surprise the young millennials in my team. They're like, Alekhya, you're too Gen Z for us. Anyway.
So I love hanging around with them, and the first thing they said was, "Hari, open a Discord account." I think I'm the only 51-year-old in my community who has a Discord login. See how petty I am. But yeah, I played with Midjourney, and what I did was I wanted to answer this question: hey, I have some imagination. I'm an artist. I put it out on canvas. If I am articulate enough to do the same prompt, my inspiration as the input variable, what do I get? So for Panchali pedals in Gurugram, I got something very different
than what you had in your mind.
Than what I had, obviously, because what I had in my head, I created with my tactility, with my imagination. What it created also was beautiful, but then it's of a different complexion, right? It picked up Gurugram from images. It picked up Sari. It picked up, also the cycles it picks up are very sporty cycles that you find in Amsterdam, not in India. So you have that mishmash.
But just interjecting here. But did you try any artist style there? Like imagine was Panchali Gurugram in Dali style or something like that?
No, I didn't do that. In fact, it will be an interesting one to do that.
You should. Yeah.
So I only did dystopian. I did very mood based. And I said, if this inspiration were to be generated, and some stuff was really nice, okay, but it had a complexion. Like obviously, if now my endeavor is, if I take huge 3x6 printouts of that and put it up in the exhibition next to mine, what will people gravitate towards? One is, what will people gravitate towards? What will they like? What will they pay more for? And therefore, what will they value more? But that's a smaller conversation. The larger conversation is, what will my organic brushstroke and real paint evoke in them, vis-a-vis what will an AI-generated image evoke in them? So at various levels, by just putting this out, you can gauge many things. Okay, one is, of course, the fact that artists will always ultimately have the upper hand and all of that. And this is really not a slugfest of whether an artist will survive against a robo or not. But fundamentally, it is about, in culture, when this goes, like, when a certain kind of art form or when a certain kind of skill gains prominence and the public start receiving it, what do they really feel about it? To me, there is just too much of the synthetic but perfect the things that are happening. Like this warmth of imperfection is going away. I'll give you a small thing. Now you saw Oppenheimer. I'm yet to see it, but I've been following it a lot from a creator's perspective. Do you know that Nolan has used miniatures and not too much CG?
Yes. He doesn't use CG at all. So even in this, of course, he didn't use CG.
He's used miniatures. Why has he not used the world's best and the most expensive technology? 300 studios in India also people are sitting and doing those animations. Kyunki usko pata hai that there is a certain organic thing that hits me vis-a-vis something very synthetic. And trust me today, see, every 2 years an Avengers comes. Every 3 years, Marvel, or a DC comes. Now, people know. See, there is no surprise in anything spectacular. See, spectacular has lost surprise. That's the expectation that we have from movies, that you surprise me, you capture me in wonderment. But kya ho raha hai? There is no wonderment anymore. If somebody is
Yeah,
jumping off,
it's funny you mentioned this. Sorry, I interjected you, but yesterday in that interview, it was Robert Downey Jr. with him, right? So, and he's Robert Downey. RDJ is like Iron Man, and hence MCU in all forms, right? And then when Nolan made this comment that I hate the world of CGI and green screen, he sort of hit his face.
it is.
But it's funny that because he has worked on this in this role, and he has done an amazing job, by the way, RDJ at Strauss. So it's please continue. I thought I'll just mention that anecdote.
You're
and also
absolutely correct. See, the good thing you said about green screen. Now, what has happened is when we watch movies, see, there is also this over explosion of content that doesn't let me bask in the wonderment or be in that space. Why? Because when I was watching Gravity 10 years ago, whenever it was released, parallelly, I was also watching Sandra Bullock. Was it Sandra Bullock in Gravity? Yeah.
Yes,
I was also watching her being captured in the Hollywood studios with green screens around her. So what is happening is the consumer or the audience is seeing the spectacularity and also seeing the ripped off revelation. It's like PC Sarkar coming and doing Indian road trade and telling you, hey, aise hota hai, aise ho gaya hai. So PC Sarkar never said it. So why is it still in Guinness? The Great Indian Rope Trick still in the Guinness because PC Sarkar never opened that backstage and said, hey, this is how I do it. He'll never do it, na? The problem with today's content and this whole Mid-Journey and Unreal Engine is that A, there is just too much of it. So it doesn't give me the breather between two franchises. B, you also show me how it is done. Then there is no magic. So in this thing, and I'm coming back to this whole artificial intelligence and synthetic stuff, the value of organic stuff, the value of miniatures
has gone up a lot more.
Has gone up a lot. You know, this artisanal dexterity, tactility, इसका value बहुत बढ़ गया है. अब आपको चाहिए वो चीज, आपको छूना है. You almost want to. So now you don't want to see computer generated fire. You actually want to see an explosion. Okay. That is what they beautifully capture. Now, Wes Anderson. Why do you love Wes Anderson movies? Why is
miniatures, everything he uses miniatures like a master.
Why do Insta filters, one of the most famous filters is the Wes Anderson filter? Why?
Correct,
Because people still...
The kids in my team did a reel as well. So imagine you are...
Because it allows you to be in touch with the toy world. Which when you're watching a Wes Anderson film, you almost feel like you are putting the whole Grand Budapest Hotel together like with Legos, right? Why do you think Barbie is capturing so much imagination? You look at Barbie's miniatures. So to me, this debate, and that is what I wanted to challenge in AI versus AI. I'm coming back to the original point. Is it the organic tactility and simplicity, or is it this too much of synthetic stuff that is surprising people, but it's not a surprise anymore? And that is what I want to reassure a lot of creative people and a lot of our own community who are thinking that they will not be relevant anymore. They will be relevant. In fact, they'll be more relevant.
Hari, in fact, I'll tell you my POV on this. I mean, I am not worried about the creative people. I think they will always have the wherewithal to use the tools and become way better versions, more productive versions of themselves. I am honestly concerned, and I hope lines like these, conversations as these, will reach the ears of the ones who are actually having the dollars and who are writing the checks. Because I tell you what is going on in their heads. They are looking at these tools. They are under the pressure to deliver the numbers, and they want the creative teams to be more productive than ever before, which in any case was a challenge, right? So to them, for example, they see that experiment from Britannia doing that Jim Jam creation with Mid-Journey as a North Star example. And unfortunately, they will now ask their teams that take my product, take my service, do something like this, right? But in there, I think that heart is again missing, like the bit that you mentioned, the tangibility, right? The beauty of being organic, which is where I really, really hope those strong creative minds really put their foot down and say, no, like we can use tools, but we will use it and do that hard work of being simple, because simplicity is so difficult. Hari, you and I know it, right? So we will do simple things but brilliant things, and we'll create legacy work using this as a tool, which is what it's supposed to be, right? So I really hope that conversation happens. It's a little bit of a confrontational conversation, but much needed.
But it's important. Why do you think Wes Anderson is not under pressure to release a movie every 2 years? Because the studio doesn't own him, right?
Correct. Equally Nolan, the Nolan.
When the studio owns this franchise, they'll say, "Banao na, rigs पड़े हुए हैं, background पड़ा हुआ है, artists बैठे हुए हैं India में, बनाओ." So the churn
Yeah.
But here the churn is not what is driving it. Here the
Yeah.
creative expression is driving it. And that
Yeah.
great. I think, Alekhya, this is a fabulous section. I think you should also do supers on this, and so
Yeah,
that people are
yeah.
watching it on mute.
We'll do with having examples, and then I think what you're helping us is with examples which can help people anchor the understanding as it goes along. Cool. So this next question I
I
want to
must
ask.
also, sorry, while I
Yes,
was
yeah,
doing this
yeah.
exploration, another example I recently found is very clever.
Mhm.
Canon or Nikon, somebody did something
Oh,
called
I do that where they
natural
actually shot the
intelligence.
natural intelligence. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
That,
I
that
think it
yeah.
was very counterintuitive. So please
That,
use that
yeah.
example of
Yeah, yeah.
Nikon Natural Intelligence campaign, which is, I think,
Correct.
it came in at the right time when everyone's saying AI, say AI9. Nice.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact that's happening. Like retro is becoming cool. I mean that happened before the AI explosion happened. Like Polaroid was coming back, right?
Oh, you're
So
coming back.
all of
You're coming to my favorite subject of retro.
yeah. So coming, yeah, exactly. So I was going to now double click, go a little deeper, and double click more into culture and content. So we have got AI out of the way, so that's out of that's good. So
Yeah.
let's move on to other pieces. I think you mentioned gaming in your initial comment, right? So I just want to understand what are the top 2 3 sort of heat maps that are there, which brands, whichever domain they are in, whatever other businesses, if they want to go after, what are the ones that they should be interested in? By the way, I'm in charge of a community now which is almost 6 million. It's largely young students, UG, PG, and some early talent. So I do have some exposure, but I wanted absolutely your perspective on this. That
Sure.
what are some of the heat map topics?
So I think, and where the real excitement now lies in gaming is that India figures are mind-boggling. Right from your casual gaming like Candy Crush and all those little games that you play, Rummy, and I'm not talking real money. I'm talking Ludo, Candy Crush, and right up to your shooter games such as BGMI. PUBG, of course, has not been unbanned yet. India is like booming with gaming. The number of people and the amount of times that they're spending. But so therefore, there is a huge kind of culture that is emerging for everyone to get into. I'm not just talking brands, but if tomorrow if somebody wants to kind of become a gaming teacher, he can. And there are and there is also that there's a book that I want you to read at some point, which is called The Game Believes in You. It's a 7 or 10-year-old book which talks about honing mathematical skills and analytical skills and agility for little children. So parents are actually now encouraging the kids to not binge on gaming, but definitely take it on and improve their analytical skills.
My 10-year-old is a Roblox addict. Like he like in birthdays. In birthdays, he doesn't want gifts. He's saying, "Give me whatever Robux." That's the currency.
Robux, yeah.
He asked for that. I'm like, wow.
I know.
Anyway,
I have a niece who wants Robux, and her 8th birthday cake was all Roblox, and there are some fascinating things happening there. Now, the good part is that gaming, when we take to our brands or when we speak to anybody, they say, you know what, we can't talk to EA and we can't get into the game. It's too expensive. But there is now a hierarchy emerging in this entire ecosystem of gaming. जैसे cricket में हुआ था, it's not the 11 players who are playing on the field. It is about the 20,000 who are watching it in the stadium, and it is about the 200 million who are watching it on TV. Now, that's exactly what is happening to gaming. Gaming is happening at the center. Then there is streaming that is happening around it, and then there's a huge audience which is even watching great gaming moments later, and the figures are mind-boggling. So it's a culture you can't ignore. I think what is important to understand is this hierarchy. Right from game tech is an opportunity, streaming is an opportunity, esports is an opportunity. Did you know that India's first esports contingent is going to the Asiad next year?
Wow.
And that's a big one. In fact, there is a ministerial committee that has been set up to make sure that this happens correctly and we send the best people. So it has become an arena sport, and it will give. And the good part is, unlike say any other organized sport, even like for instance, when you look at Neeraj Chopra or when you look at any athlete, like even my driver's son who's in, they live in Haryana and sport is a big thing. He's spending almost 8,000 to 10,000 rupees a month on his son's boxing thing. The thing is, they were able to afford it. He's picking out because he believes that it can become a career. Like it's like how your parents and my parents thought that IAS can become a career.
Or IAS or UPSC.
So they're investing in it. So,
Awesome.
however, gaming doesn't need that kind of investment. Now, imagine if there are 20 esports teams 10
Yeah.
years from now. Even that kid who is metro delivering a dunzo, he's already skilling himself thanks to technology.
Correct.
He can become an Asia level player. So gaming is democratizing many things beyond the relief it gives people, beyond the little wins that it gives every day. Because see, everybody wants to win every day. Now, if your real life really sucks and you can't win, you have to win somewhere, right? So the vulnerable are taking gaming on as an arena where they can win, they can prove themselves. It is the real Ekalavya. Yeah, Ekalavya happening. This is a huge insight that I got when I saw the people, and the most vulnerable segment, women. 44% gamers in this
gamers
entire
are women. Yeah. I didn't know the number, but I knew that was pretty significant. Wow, this is amazing. Yeah.
I'm going to point you to a podcast I did recently with 3 top women gamers of India, women game streamers of India. One is a lady who lives in Burdwan. She calls herself something, she has a avatar name. Then there is a young millennial mom who got into gaming because she wanted to fence a protective layer around her kid who was getting into gaming. And she became a gamer herself. And then there is a 40-plus-year-old auntie in Jammu who's India's top streamer, Blackbird. Her name is Blackbird. So I'll send you that podcast. It's amazing. That's what is happening right now. And we are going to our clients who never thought of gaming as an opportunity, who say, hey, my brand is all about housewives in kitchens. I said, boss, housewives in kitchens are gaming. Go ahead and at least explore that world. So that is what is happening, Alekhya, that gaming, the way, the stereotype we have of a kid wearing a hoodie and sitting on lazy boy.
It's not that.
That's a stereotype. But the world is much larger than that. And that there are beautiful things happening. There are transformative things happening in that world, and technology is supporting it. And you know why the BGMS and all of these is being unbanned just before the election? Because young people have to be kept busy and happy. So naturally, government is also taking a lot of effort in making sure that it happens in a way that is compatible with Indian laws, etc. And therefore, you see something emerging which is going to become really, really big. Now, parallelly, what is happening is all the broadcast channels, whether you take Star or Sony, they bet heavily on arena sports like cricket. They bet heavily on Indian contact sports like kabaddi. Now they are betting on gaming. So they are actually going to be broadcast partners of esports events. And therefore, now it becomes a TV proposition. See, you worked in FMCGs, and you know that ultimately decisions are based on that universal parameter. And I think now gaming will come into that universal parameter. The big difference being, it is truly democratized because you don't need to be that Sachin Tendulkar who can go to the expensive nets and be trained by a Dronacharya. Now, anyone can do it. So that's the space to watch out for. Very exciting and extremely kind of intriguing. In fact, there are intersections because when streamers put up their best moments of how they tackled a certain situation, they also layer it with music. And music is being discovered through gaming reels. So imagine what is happening is there is this huge culture and there is a subculture emerging saying, boss, isme jo rap aaya, wo suna, wo rapper famous ban gaya. So that's the cross-tabbing that you spoke about. And that's what I feel very excited about because I am very glad to be alive today.
At this time.
Because, at this time, I think it's one of the most exciting times in anyone's life who was born anytime after the 70s.
Absolutely.
It's a crazy.
I think people should be jealous of you and me, because we have had the context and the upbringing of, let's say, the Mad Men era and all that pop culture references, Tintin, etc., which I think this generation has slightly moved ahead of. And at the same time, we have the tools and the wherewithal to execute those things which were deep down, right? So
we still have that energy. Imagine if it was 10 years later. If it was 10 years later, you and I wouldn't have been so excited about it. I hope we can still keep that excitement alive after 10 years.
But from your fascinating series of anecdotes and dive into the world of gaming and the potential, I just realized, and I really hope people take home, whoever is listening to this episode, the potential of how big your canvas can be. Because while listening to you, my mind went back to this one talk I was attending to in a marketing conference last year. I went to in Goa, where I won't name the company, massive behemoth, massive conglomerate, but the marketing head of their FMCG wing was talking about the cool thing that they had done in metaverse, and it's an iconic brand name, right? It was so horrible and execution hurry, like and he was proudly saying that we have got million number of impressions, etc. We have cracked gaming. This is the what we had cracked. There's many. I'm like, what is the outcome? And I just come back to the potential and deeply culturally entrenched into insights and how like you mentioned, like it is for everyone. How little capital is required to do something big here, right? And I like the government bit as well. And at times I think, Hari, that government actually does the best marketing research than many of the companies that have marketing research functions, many of the brands that I have worked in. So yeah, fascinating anecdotes. Just one connected conversation, and let's move on to one more topic here. I'm seeing a trend globally, and it's not a trend, it's actually happening, that the media definition of media is actually going beyond just the broadcast channels, digital and offline. And actually retailers are becoming the biggest media players now. There is Amazon, there is Apple, right? So
Yeah.
that's happening globally, and which is why you see Apple, for example, taking a big stake in MLS soccer in US. Apple being one of the backers of Messi moving to Inter Miami, and he had that massive debut for yesterday, etc. So how do you see that space sort of changing? Because e-gaming and sports are pretty adjacent areas, and I think IPL, for example, the Super Bowl of India, is sort of a space as well culturally, which is pretty big, or probably bigger than Hindi cinema today.
That too is changing now, because we did some
That was
research
changing.
recently, but I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, you want to throw some light on that? How is that space evolving? Like, retailers sort of, and I feel this OTT space is going to like see some change and some clustering now going ahead. What do you think is going to happen?
See,
What's the
I
reason?
think so here is where I feel the big shift is happening when it comes to retailers taking over the brand game, right? That is because of the fundamental assumption that consumers have understood what brands can give them. See, at a time when you had to explain what a brand means to a person, like when Super Bowl used to, or say IPL used to be all about, say a Pepsi or a Coke saying, hey, this is what we stand for. Now the consumer knows what you stand for. Earlier, the assumption was that the consumer doesn't know what you stand for, and the consumer will align with you. Oh, I'm either a Samsung person or an iPhone person. I think that has evolved to a point where consumers know, and they will want to know more, but ultimately they'll buy from you.
Right.
So
Correct.
So it's like a Vijay sales, yeah. Now Vijay sales doesn't go out and say कि यार ये वाला मिक्सी खरीद लो, वो वाला आप हमें पता है आप आओगे तो मेरे पास.
Neither does DMart, actually one of the biggest success stories in Indian retail, right? DMart also does. Yeah.
वो doesn't. वो पता है तू तो मेरे पास ही आएगा, मेरे पास सब कुछ होगा, मेरा margin बनेगा. Now that is the fundamental premise at which we are basically trusting the consumer to go find information, go through ratings, go through a journey of evaluation. But when he goes through the journey of evaluation, so understand this, in large platforms such as Super Bowl and IPL, the task is not to help consumers in their journey of evaluation.
Correct.
That has already happened.
Yeah.
The task is to say
they're in the funnel. They're in the
funnel. Now click that button. So that whole content to commerce exercise has changed. I love this word, and we use this often in Publicis group. There is a journey of content to commerce. Earlier, the content journey used to end in where I watched advertising and I say, hey, this is a cheap car, or there is a discount on it, or this.
You drive awareness. You're supposed to only drive awareness. Yeah, that was
and consideration to an extent.
Yes.
And then you go out to the dealer and now purchase. Now the whole funnel is changed. Now while he's watching that match in Jio, he can click and order a test drive. That's it. So the role of these platforms has changed immensely, also because of the inventory they offer. Now, at the most you can buy a 20-second on an IPL, and I don't know whether what you can buy, right? What can you do in 20 seconds? You can at the most help. Okay, you've gone through the funnel, now you come here. And then the role of other digital media, there is this whole theory of hero hub and hygiene content, which started about 10-15 years ago by Google, which I'm a fan of. And that kind of gives you where you put out hero communication, where you put hub communication, where you put hygiene communication, and finally you close the deal. And more and more people, they are now educated, they have done the evaluations, they've done the ratings, and all they now need to do is either buy it from DMart or Amazon or Flipkart. And that's what is currently really happening. Now imagine if I get Housewife hooked to Amazon Mini, and they have some pretty good shows out there, very small snackable content. Now imagine if I have you there. So Amazon Mini TV is coming up with a lot of gaming related content, in a sense that fictional stories about 5 or 6 gamers, and you're there, and suddenly you see boat there, and you buy boat, and you say you just go to the other page and buy the boat. It's like, imagine if 25 years ago you were watching TV and suddenly a Sprite ad came in front of you. You could click it and someone can come over and give it to you. That is now being made possible. So now what they're doing, reverse engineering of making sure that in the content to commerce journey, they're going from commerce back to content in that same window.
Correct.
Which is, I think, a brilliant strategy.
So I think two perspectives to that. I think hence the role of the messaging becomes that much more important in that content to commerce role, because let's not forget, in the funnel, as a viewer, as a consumer, I am in that consumption mode. So the less interruptive your brand messaging is, better off you will be, right? So hence the need to think through your messaging and make it as hardworking and immersive as possible, right, in that moment. Second, I think listening to you, I was thinking it's then very bad news for linear TV folks, right? And one headline I read this week comes to my mind, where Bob Iger, the Disney guy, said that linear TV, I think they're selling off some of the IPs. So I think that's probably the domino effect which just started. If Disney's thinking like that, I think linear TV is probably...
To me, linear TV doesn't exist anymore, because you are anyway not in the same set. You are not linear anymore. While you're watching something on that TV, you're also watching your screen. You're also playing a game. So in your life, you're not linear anymore.
But Hari, why don't you help bust that myth that people think that OTT connected TV is only an India 1.2 phenomenon, 2.2, 3.2 still watches Doordarshan. There is that myth that still goes around, right, in some marketing circles. What do you think of that?
So they don't watch Doordarshan necessarily.
Other channels,
satellite TV. They watch sub TV and Sony Pal and Sony Va, because they are free to air. The thing is that we are a 1.5 billion population country, and the penetration of many of those channels is still very, very high. It's a different matter that there are other regulations and there are other issues kind of coming in the way. Even if you look at OTT, the kind of OTT that is still operating like a Star TV. It's still like a general entertainment channel. Only thing is you pay for some are free. The free one you still have to watch ads. So the consumer life में कोई difference नहीं आया. उसको तो ad देखना ही पड़ता है. But fundamentally, yes, there is still a huge amount of... See, you should also see why they run, because there is also a supply side to it. There's a whole lot of content. You put on your TV if you have a satellite TV at home, and you put on any free channel, you see what comes in there. There is constant flow of Telugu. There are some 700 South Indian movies made every year and dubbed in Hindi. So imagine there is this ready flow, unlike an Amazon who has to commission a content and do all that. So I must tell you this fascinating story. These are all hidden stories. So there was this upcoming star in the 90s called Sumit Sehgal. He was one of those, typically what you look at, he looked like Kartik Aaryan and Varun Dhawan of today. Very nice Punjabi face, launched, very good looking, launched as a romantic hero. And he somewhere disappeared, after giving a couple of, random hits. Today, over the last 30 years, I just kind of Google checked him, because his daughter's become a very famous Tamil movie star. And Sumit Sehgal, actually last 20 or 30 years, he's been in the business of dubbing South Indian movies and distributing them in the Hindi audience.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So
he would have become a monopoly that business maybe.
Yes. So
Full big name.
huge business. So every channel wants it because it's ready content.
Right,
He's got
right.
all the rights. He's figured out a way to quickly, Jesse, South Indian film banta
Yeah.
hai, give it a title, register the
Yeah.
title, put the dialogues, put the songs, and there's a lot of work that goes on there. It's a parallel industry in itself, which Christopher Nolan also will be surprised. So it's so that amounts of crazy supply supports these channels because the channel has to keep something running to keep the eyeballs there. So that's what it is. So it really works at the lowest common denominator. When you and I talk about OTT, we're talking, our milieu. But there is a huge kind of layers and layers where a presswala who's ironing 300 clothes a day, his wife is sitting and folding them. They are bored of each other. What is there? Sub TV chal raha hai, Sony TV chal raha hai. Wo chal raha hai. And that is...
sorry to cut you. I think it's a segue into what I was going to ask you next beautifully. So दो तीन content pieces है, content IPs है जो मेरे को लग रहा है they're cutting across all levels of India, 1.2, 2.2, 3.2 today, and I'll take some names and then you can reflect on them. One, tell me one movie which is going to think about doing, let's say, IP integrations to promote before its release. How can it choose not to go on, let's say, Kapil Sharma? What is that guy doing right? Let's say that, or let's say Tarak Mehta ka Ulta Chashma. I see some of my closest friends while in office, they're quickly just checking what's happening in Tarak Mehta. I'm like, really? I've never seen one episode, by the way, right? Or let's say Bigg Boss. Something is connecting on these three, right? That's one. The second cohort I want to talk to you about, and a lot of respect for these guys, work closely with them on a project, is the folks at TVF. They're doing something right in just tapping into the understanding of the minds of different cohorts of largely the young India and also maybe the families as well. They have some of the best family content as well to sit alongside what is the core strength which is targeted towards specific cohorts within the young audience. Like, let's say they pick up the UPSC aspirant, and we know we are talking about Sandeep Bhaiya, etc. Or on the other hand, there is Panchayat, right? So which is actually something that is being seen in metros, as also there's a lot of connect that's happening in India 2.2, 3.2. So how are these guys sort of remaining relevant? Kapil Sharma, Bigg Boss, Tarak Mehta, and at the same time TV. What's happening in that space? If you want to share your views on that.
So that it's a very interesting space to kind of dissect. So what happens is when you see a Panchayat, it is two people who can watch OTT, but who are wanting to really get a window into what really happens. Is that it is the Anurag Kashyap effect. You and I will watch Vasepur. Vasepur guy will not watch Vasepur. Vasepur guy will watch a Bhojpuri movie which Nirawa in
it. So we want some indie cred. That's why we are watching.
We want that real. Our perception of what reality is. We want that blood and gore. That guy is escaping. That guy is watching Nirawa and Manoj Tiwari dance with a beer bottle.
Correct.
We want to watch him like that, saying, "Oh shit! Look at that! Look at that guy! Look at that Munna Bhaiya." So what is being shown is not being seen by that archetype there. It is being seen by a person who's far away, well protected. You're almost
it's imagining like our view of that.
Our view of that. It's the Slumdog effect. It's like how West wanted to see us falling into shit. We in cities want to see Vasepur falling into shit. It's that phenomena.
But hold on. So
that's one. That is one segment. That is one segment. Okay.
Sure,
so TVF is all about these niches that are there. Like, I don't know what's happening in my son's life. Okay, I don't know tripling. I don't know all this shit. So that is a subculture. They will cater to that subculture, right? And that is why the production amounts are also that much only. You'll see the stuff that is being spent in a Vasepur vis-a-vis this. You will see the inputs and you will see the difference as to how they are optimizing all of that.
Correct.
Where Kapil Sharma and Tarak Mehta kind of strike a chord is they've found that universal things that make people laugh. वो आपके LIG flat में जो पढ़ा उसको भी हंसी आ रही है, मेरे को भी हंसी आ रही है. So people have cracked this universal formula that makes you laugh. So the jokes will be always about oppressed husband and wife. Right?
Now, cross-dressing is something that they always have.
That's right. That's right. So it will always be about, in Tarak Mehta's case, a hot wife of a neighbor who's very average and, having jokes around that. Now that can happen in Aralias also, and that can happen in Sector 56 also. There's a lot of science that goes into this, and they figure that out. okay, what is that base human truth, and I can make across the spectrum people laugh. Then you go into certain tunnels, like certain niches, and you can say, hey, this niche is for this, and therefore I can create some empathetic content there and let people mirror their lives. And then there is content where it is made about A, but the B watches it. It is not about A watching it, right? So there is a great mix of voyeurism.
I was thinking about that. Yes.
Mirroring of my own archetype, and also this whole thing about, okay, I'm fine to laugh at this universal joke. See, there are some jokes you don't get and you don't laugh at, but there are some jokes which makes everyone laugh. So Kapil and Tarak Mehta have figured that out. And this is how all these formulae are working. That's why you have some bright people, and that's why, honestly, boss, people pay for it. So so clearly it's working. Right.
So I want to ask you this question. I feel that innocence in advertising has gone out. I think that entire Prahlad Kakkar generation of advertising, and you have worked on the brand, so you know what I'm talking about, which was, by the way, extremely on product. That's probably one of the best examples of a continuous series of a brand advertising where the focus was completely on the product and the category, right? And then herein we live in an age where, I mean, we have to write, obviously for the right reasons, 15 or 20-second ads. But then again, the focus is on product, but there seems a lot of lazy writing as well in doing that. Not many make that hard effort to write a good story as well while talking about the product, which is of course a given, right? So what has changed, and how what strains can we bring back and retain that retro look, and to bring back something that you mentioned, the importance of tangible and organic, right? So I think that has become the rare currency. Right, so usko kaise hum maintain kar paye? I don't know whether I'm making sense with the question. So if you
so there are many questions in this section. See, fundamentally, you're talking about Prahlad Kakkar and a time when normal content was boring. When I put on the TV as a 17-year-old, I had only one channel, at the most two channels, and I had to wait for an interesting segment of half an hour. Because it was state sponsored, largely electoral kind of agendas, 2 segments of news. So in my diet of content, there were only 2 or 3 little things that really used to excite me. I said, wow, I wait for that, right? It was really a content entertainment starved country. Now in that, and even in movies used to suck in the 90s, by the way, in the 80s and 90s. Because movie making was going through its own realities of the huge mafia, and a certain section of artists who had dominated it, and a certain kind of audience they were catering to. Government not having much of a play in regulating movie going and all of that, and private players not wanting to touch that space. Now in that context, you need to look at what advertising did. Suddenly, what happened? In that boring day, I saw a segment of 10 minutes where I could see beautiful ads created to sell products to me. And they were very shiny. They were very interesting. They were very intriguing. They were very entertaining. So advertising took on the role of entertaining people because content was not entertaining people. Prahlad Kakkar became the TVF of those days. So the thing is, it played it quenched your thirst. Now, over a period of time, content became more interesting and gripping, and advertising became an interruption.
Ulta. Like, I mean, it took 15-20 years. I think from around mid 2000, 2005 or something. I mean, we struggle to remember a good ad. Like, you will struggle to remember a good ad, barring maybe a Zuzu, etc., which is an iconic.
That's right. It took a lot of time because the whole evolution of programming becoming more interesting, more shiny. See, the reason is when competition came in, then channels were under pressure to create interesting programming. So they invested a lot. Earlier, there was no investment by the government. Then when satellite TV and then DTH happened is when content became more interesting. Digital content became more interesting. It's like almost as at a time when advertising had to fight for its it had to reclaim its entertainment quotient. So it stopped because people loved content. Now people loved content. They didn't want to be interrupted. Now there are some people who don't want to be interrupted. They'll take paid channel and they'll say, don't give me advertising. There are some people who said, hey, I like the entertainment. I'm willing to go through your boring ads. let me do it. So to be honest, your ads were not competing again. When Prahlad was doing great work, it wasn't competing with anything. It was competing with Chitrahar. Today, in advertising, boy and girl is competing with Anurag Kashyap. Is competing with competing with a K-pop. It's competing with the same person. At that moment, he can watch anything else which is more visually spectacular or more entertaining. That's the problem. So we need to therefore, and if you then overlap it to the role of advertising, like we spoke in the previous section about, does it really have to be the hero content, or does it just have to do his job and say, book a test drive? Then they do it. Now you find and that's what is happening. That's why budgets are reducing. That's why the role is being redefined. It's now saying, okay, the role of entertainment. Consumer wants entertainment. He'll go and watch Nolan. He's not going to watch. He's not going to watch an advertising copywriter's product.
Like you said, you were saying now it's more bottom funnel focused, conversion focused, content to commerce is the name of the game. But in there is a birth of a brand like Moonshot, which by the way name has been given now, which Vishal and Devaiah are working with Tanmay Bhat to work on brand after brand. And now it's probably, and this is a bit of a disagreement which I have with you. Cred, I think, is not a flash in the pan. There are now at least 20 different startups that I can think of who have done pretty kick-ass ads, including Shark Tank, which has given its both season 1, season 2, and season 3 advertising mandate to them, to this set of folks. So they are actually marrying storytelling within pop culture conversation spaces with the need for the commerce and the focus for the brand of the business. And they're coming up with very smart 20-30 seconders, right? And even 10-15 seconders. Cred being the ultimate example. We can talk about Cred. That's a full episode as well. The pros and cons of that. But I think there are much smarter executions from this new lot, who are not really traditional advertising folks.
There are.
Right. So what do you think of that? So how is that space now still
I think,
doing a job?
So that is to do with who's come into the business. Okay. I think for a long time we were straddled with people like me in the business at my age. They failed to understand new terms, new nuances. And I think, for instance, even if you look at, we were all talking about Paperboat being such a fabulous brand, and all of that is fine. But Paperboat hasn't been able to retain its nostalgia proposition over the years because they have failed to understand nostalgia for younger people. People, the newer Prahlad Kakkars of the world are people like Tanmay Bhat and the others that you named, who are figuring that out. What is their vocabulary? What is their insight? What is their life all about? So I think when the breed changes, then the entertainment will also change. To me, even Cred was made for who knows Bappi Lahiri. My age people know Bappi Lahiri.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't really think Cred was. I think only Cred was a flash in the pan. I think only Rahul Dravid's story was very endearing and very interesting.
I like the Neeraj Chopra execution. I think Neeraj Chopra was pretty kick-ass.
That was kick-ass, yeah. So they to work very hard to understand who is in the market, what is his nostalgia, what is his concept of fun, and I think the newer kids on the block will do it, and newer platforms will do it. In fact, memes will do it. And that's a separate section which I'll talk to you about.
Awesome. So I think one last question that I have, and this is where I request you to share some pieces of advice for people who are listening to it. Imagine like someone in college, like listening to this, and most of them are young listeners of this series that we have seen, who wants to do good by somewhere straddling those spaces and going back to the intersecting circles and ikigai that you have arrived at: content, culture, and commerce. Right. So those 3 C's: content, culture, and commerce. If they want to do well, either at advertising or marketing or some other space, what should they do in general as a daily practice? 2-3 things that you want to share with them as hacks, as they like to call it.
No. So I think young people should start observing the entire world around them, because they should take interest in things that are not part of their daily their set of interests also. The reason is because there is so much of choice today that as your kid is a Roblox kid, he will be in Roblox and he will stay in that adjacency. Okay. But will he ever get down to say going and figuring out how Chota Beam is being viewed by somebody? He won't, because he's now in that tunnel.
So
So the
widening
first,
that perspective.
you have to widen that perspective. So you should not say, hey, you know what? I really find it very challenging when I meet young people who say, the whole world is now watching, Suits. Whole world is not watching Suits. You are watching Suits.
Yes.
Your world is watching Suits.
Hmm.
But there is many other worlds out there which you need to know what they are watching. So the self-absorption in your own world can lead you to a very small, narrow space. So you need to have
ये तो
a
बहुत है,
broader.
मतलब generalization बहुत है, मतलब every like walk of
So
life,
what
every
they need
professional
to.
circle.
So my advice to them is that in Hindu philosophy there's this thing about my world. See, you live in three worlds. So there is my world, me, my friends, my parents, what I do, what I'm dependent on, what interests me. Okay? That is my world. And everybody lives in this 80% of the time. The second is the world, which is the world is my world is only one part of the world. Have I walked into the world? Have I gone out and seen kya ho raha hai? Have I spoken with my maid and asked her what her son watches? Have I spoken with my driver and understood? Have I even gone to his home and see how he lives? What interests them?
Yeah.
Then once you do that, then there is a third world, which you say it is not my world. Like there is a lot of rejection we do, na? When we say, hey, I cringy stuff, Bhojpuri songs, cringy stuff, not my world. If you want to succeed in this world of communication and advertising and pop culture, you need to live in my world, you need to live in the world, and you need to live in not my world. You need to stop rejecting, because when you start a business, you will get a Hawaii Chappal brand which costs $100, which needs to talk to the Bhojpuri guy. At that time, you will struggle.
Correct.
You will get an education brand which which teaches English to young people over the phone, and your driver's son may be interested in that. You need to understand that. Then you need to that guy will give you a big retainer. But if you don't understand his world at all, he will not give you that. You'll lose that. And then you need to be in your world, because you will not always get business that is part of your world. If you say that no, I will only be in this top end Bandra, Gurgaon kind of milieu, and I will only do work for them. To be honest, advertising doesn't have so many opportunities only to cater to this audience. So I want each one of the young people to understand this three worlds that they live in and start opening themselves out. Now you need to create everyday practices. How do you do it? You can do it. You can either, now digital is available to you. You can see what people are watching. You should step out, take that metro ride, take that electric train ride. You should actually go to not a mall, but a regular market where people are buying things and bargaining. You need to be observant of the world world that you live in, and stop rejecting.
There are many young marketers in my team who I think they are because of the pressure of the everyday work pressure that they have. They get into this zone of wanting to hack a particular channel on their laptops, right? So and I think they just miss out on opportunities, let's say while traveling through Delhi metro every day, which is like a cultural milieu like no other. Just look around, and maybe tomorrow I'll ask them, like while I commute, in fact that will be maybe a 7 a.m. message I'm thinking of right now on Monday, that spot 5 things that you see in those North Campus Janta when you get down at Vishwavidyalaya, right? So and I come back and let's see what you do with that as a young community owner, right? So I think this is something that basically, like an FMCG guy in me, I'm thinking, what you are saying in different words is essentially the experience of immersion, consumer immersions, while selling a humble bar of soap, the experience of immersing in the life of that housewife, and going there with my market research colleague and the colleague from the ad agency who used to work with me, that actually taught me a lot. Like, my favorite phrase taught to me by one of my favorite bosses was "फट के समझ लो consumer को, जब तक वो नहीं करोगे you won't be able to sell anything to."
And उसके लिए एक बहुत जरूरी चीज है, उसके लिए आपको अपने स्क्रीन से आंख उठा के बड़े स्क्रीन में देखना पड़ेगा. आपके जो अराउंड एक बड़े स्क्रीन में जिसमें आप एक प्लेयर हो, this I think is the biggest enemy of growth. It is a very big friend also, but the moment I see all young people in metros just absorbed in their own screens, but the moment they're willing to see the world around them, then they'll see the different reality that they will see. Thanks Alekhya. I enjoyed really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm really looking forward to more of it.
And you need to say like, share, and subscribe to East India Marketing Company.
Yeah, please like, share, and subscribe to East India Marketing. This is one of the most interesting podcasts that I have come across.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.